Hey guys, it's Carolyn from Beauty Beyond Bones. I asked y'all to send in your recovery questions on Instagram, and you did not disappoint. Tonight we'll be covering inpatient, how to get over the shame in our past, binge eating, obsessive food thoughts, and practical tips for parents. So let's jump right in. Number 1, how to stop thinking about food 24/7. Okay, the answer to this question is not particularly going to be an easy one to hear, but it's the truth. The reason a person in recovery is thinking about food all the time is because they are still actively restricting or not getting sufficient nutrients or calories. Here's the thing. The body is designed to survive. It's our animal instinct to live. And so if it's not getting enough calories to survive and thrive, it's going to turn on the mental Mayday SOS signal in your brain to make the body intake more food because it's in literal distress. So what is one surefire way to do this? By making you think about food all the time. When I was actively in my anorexia, I thought about food constantly. It would be the first thing I thought of in the morning and the last thing I thought about when I went to bed. I mean, I used to even dream about food. It was just this sick obsession. I would watch the Food Network religiously. I'd always be looking up Pinterest food recipes, or I'd bake cookies all the time for people, and yet never even allow myself to taste test the cookie dough. I mean, heck, I would even go to the grocery store and walk down the aisles and look at food in this lustful way and masochistic way, never letting myself enjoy it. A 24/7 preoccupation with food is a huge red flag that there is restriction happening. Food is fuel for our bodies, yes, but also a source for pleasure. Let's not forget that, or make it a bigger deal than it should be. When we nourish our bodies with enough nutrients to function and thrive, and also allow ourselves to enjoy the beautiful, delicious array of tastes and flavors God gave us, then food will take its proper place in our lives. We eat, we enjoy, we move on. Never obsessing or deliberating, because hey, we eat 3 meals a day, no food is off limits, and there's always tomorrow. Which, on that note, one last thing. I did go through a binge period. I wrote about it on my blog, but obsession with food is not only present in someone with anorexia, it's also an obsession for people struggling with binge eating. There's this all or nothing mindset with binging, and so you restrict, and then just gorge on everything you've been denying yourself. So obviously you're going to obsess over what you're planning to binge on later. It's this truly life-ruining cycle that's incredibly hard to break, but just let yourself enjoy food. When we ditch the labels of good or bad, then we can eat freely and let ourselves enjoy and be satisfied, and then that urge to binge will literally dissipate overnight when we can just eat without restriction or guilt. Next, did I seek residential treatment? Yes, I did seek residential treatment. I went to inpatient for 2 months or 3 months. And honestly, I fully advocate for inpatient or residential treatment. They're both interchangeable. In my opinion, it is the best and only way to fully recover. I mean, to be clear, I was adamant at the time against not going. As an 18-year-old senior in high school, I was legally an adult, and therefore my parents technically could not force me to go to inpatient. It was 4 days before my graduation, and a bed finally opened up at the best inpatient facility in the country, and I would not even entertain the idea of missing my graduation. But the fact is, I was 78 pounds, and my situation was so dire that the doctors didn't think I had 4 more days. I needed to go now. So my parents staged an intervention, and long story short, I was on an airplane the next morning, flying across the country to inpatient. Now, since then, I have become such an advocate for inpatient because I feel it is the only way one can truly recover, and here's why. In her home environment, she's still in control. Up until that point, she's figured out a way to manipulate her parents and loved ones into actively engaging in ed behaviors, either openly or secretively. So in order for her to truly heal, she needs to be completely removed from that environment and placed in a situation where she has no other options than to relinquish control. At Inpatient, you are monitored 24/7. They control the media you consume, your daily activity, the food you eat. They even flush the toilet for you. The biggest thing, in my opinion, is that it's unfair to the parents. By trying to recover at home, it places the parents in the position of food police and forces them to be the bad cop, which is detrimental on so many levels. As I mentioned before, she's already learned which buttons to push to get her way. And additionally, parents need to remove themselves from the battle and the standoff struggle over food. It's a power play, and the parents need to just not engage. At Inpatient, there is a nurse who literally monitors what she eats and won't let her leave the table until every morsel of food is gone. And that type of hard line simply cannot be drawn in a home environment by the parents. And furthermore, residential or inpatient is at a medical facility. Sure, it might be camouflaged as a spa or a retreat-like atmosphere, but the fact is there are doctors and medical staff and equipment at the ready should, God forbid, something happen. Refeeding syndrome is a very, very real thing. And particularly during the initial period, a starving body needs to be gradually nourished. Otherwise, this tsunami-like influx of food could send her weak heart into cardiac arrest. It is a real thing, and I sure as hell wouldn't want to try to navigate that delicate balance at home without the supervision of a doctor. It's just my 2 cents. Okay, next. What advice would you give to someone who is ministering to or walking with a person in recovery? Aside from encouraging her to get professional help or continue on with her care team in an outpatient relationship, I think it's incredibly important to be as knowledgeable about eating disorders as possible. By learning about ED, you not only are communicating through your actions to this person that you care enough to become familiar about what they're going through, but it also allows you to more deeply connect. Eating disorders are not about the weight, they're not about the food, and I can't even begin to express how much it meant to have a person in my life that realized that, who didn't look at me as the number on the scale or see my progress or worth as how much food I ate or didn't eat that day, but rather saw me for me, who wanted to know my interior rather than just fixating on my exterior. So my advice is see her as a person and not just a case to be fixed. And lastly, and most importantly, I think it's important to remind her of her worth in Christ and how loved she is despite all of our sins or shortcomings. God's love is a no matter what situation. Those in recovery carry around so much guilt and so much shame about their past. And being that source of encouragement and truth that God takes all of us and loves us unconditionally, that is something to just drill into her head, because though she may know that conceptually, actually believing it is something that takes years and years to fully embrace. And believe me, I know that from personal experience. So yeah, your presence, your care, your love, it goes a long way. Piggybacking off of that question, what is the best way to intervene with a loved one who may be showing signs of an eating disorder? With gentleness and kindness, without judgment or criticism, with concern and honesty in a private and one-on-one setting, without presumption or accusation, with patience and a willingness to listen, with knowledge that she's probably going to lash out in anger or hurt, with love and compassion, with resources for professional help, and with an offer of support and confidentiality. It will be a difficult conversation, but one that needs to be had. And just remember, love is not always soft. Next question. My Ed is telling me that I don't deserve church or God or the community I have there. How do I restore my relationship with God? This is definitely something that I can relate with, because I think when we go through something like an eating disorder or addiction or alcoholism, we can take the guilt we feel for having gone through that and for having put our loved ones through that, and we can internalize that guilt and come to believe that it wasn't just our actions that were wrong, but that we ourselves as people at our core are wrong and disordered and bad. We can put that guilt on ourselves, which then becomes shame, and that shame becomes a terrible filter through which we see the entire world and situations and ourselves and our relationships, especially with God. It took me a long time, but I had to realize that my eating disorder was one of the nails on the cross, that Jesus loved me in my broken state. He loved me as I was in that moment enough to die for, and to know that he willingly took up the cross, knowing full well that I would have this season of destruction during my eating disorder, but he died to wipe that slate clean for me and to redeem me from my eating disorder. It just broke me, and it broke through. Keep dwelling on that truth every morning, every day, until those walls are broken down. And just remember, Jesus knows all of you and loves every part of you and your story just as it is. Don't let the Ed win by staying away from the church and from God. After all, the voice of Ed is really the voice of Satan. So, of course he wants to keep you away from God. Don't let him win. It is your life. He's trying to destroy it. Don't give him that satisfaction or that victory. Next. How do you deal with anxiety over eating? And how do you know if a big meal classifies as a binge? One of the biggest hurdles of eating disorder recovery is relearning how to A, listen to your body and its hunger cues, and B, what an appropriate portion size is. During my disease, I had normalized portion sizes that were nutritionally and calorically inadequate, to put it mildly. So afterwards, I would feel like I was just eating this mountain of food when in actuality it was just a normal portion size. I was just used to eating what Ed dictated as safe, which was next to nothing. So that readjustment can be mentally difficult. But I will also say this. Part of food freedom is honoring your body's hunger cues. And sometimes that means that you will eat more food than normal, but that's okay. Your body needed it. Perhaps you had a particularly active day, or your body needed some extra protein or iron, or heck, maybe it even just tasted super delicious and you wanted an extra helping. That's okay. It's food freedom, and not every day will be exactly the same. Binge eating involves regular episodes of compulsive, uncontrollable eating past the point of comfort for reasons other than hunger. It is its own eating disorder, and I've written about it extensively on my blog, which I will link in the box below. Next question, how do you stay strong during recovery? This is the last one. Honestly, surrounding yourself with people who know, love, and care about you is so important. Eating disorders thrive in secrecy and isolation, so creating a community of life-affirming people is crucial. And for me, it's been so important to just embrace life and embrace people. During my eating disorder, I completely pushed the world away. I isolated myself, and I didn't return a phone call or a text message for 2 years. So the biggest thing for me in my recovery is to let people in, to say yes to opportunity and adventure and friendship, and it has made such a huge difference. And by doing so, it sends the subliminal message to my brain that I am worth being known and being loved. And as someone who spent years and years not believing that, it affirms my recovery every single day. Practically speaking, I've completely ditched the scale. I don't even own one. I don't own a full-length mirror. I threw away all those teeny tiny clothes I wore during my anorexia that I was secretly using as a measuring stick, you know what I mean? But I really keep my focus off of the external and instead make a conscious effort to everyday focus on my soul health. I listen to worship music, church sermons. I try to go to daily mass as often as I can. I would not have my recovery were it not for Jesus. And part of that sustained recovery comes from being in constant closeness with him through prayer, through reading my Bible or other Christian publications, and through Christ-centered relationships in my life. Jesus reminds me of who I am, and he fills me and fills my mind with the truth so that I cannot hear the lies that the evil one tries to trip me up with. So, there you have it, folks. Some of the questions that you sent in about recovery. I hope that they were insightful or helpful for you. You know, at the end of the day, we are what we think about. It's as simple as that. So we need to constantly be seeking out Christ. He's not going to force himself on us. We have to make the choice to be in relationship with him. And when we are consumed by his love, there is no room for any other garbage that is flung our way. So I hope you all have a beautiful Monday night. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up while you're at it. I would really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for watching. God bless, and I love you all.